The notion of general capabilities was introduced around the world in the late 1990s as a way in which to attain the continuously changing skills required to be employable through education. In a 2019 review of the New South Wales curriculum, Dr. Paul Weldon established that these skills came to prevalence thanks to the changing landscape of society, with more job opportunities requiring higher order skills. General capabilities, as educators know it, was brought in by the Australian Curriculum Assessment and Reporting Authority. It is important to note that at this stage, each state and territory in Australia have their own unique interpretations of the general capabilities set out by ACRA. For the purposes of continuity in this presentation, I will be focusing on the national general capabilities from ACRA. The general capabilities involve the skills, knowledge, dispositions, and behaviours that, when combined with the specific curriculum content of each learning area, as well as addressing the cross-curricular priorities, facilitate the student's ability to have prosperous lives in modern society. ACRA states that there are 7 general capabilities in the Australian curriculum. Those are literacy, numeracy, information and communication technology, or ICT, critical and creative thinking, personal and social capability, ethical understanding, and intercultural understanding. The first of the 3 key ideas surrounding general capabilities that I will be highlighting in this presentation is that the general capabilities should be utilised across all method areas. To some that may have not yet had the chance to have an in-depth analysis into the composition of the general capabilities, they may believe that only certain subjects can effectively use certain general capabilities. This is in fact not true, as all method areas are able to employ aspects of the 7 general capabilities in order to achieve the best educational outcomes for the students. ACRA actually has fact sheets for every major subject area, which have a list of examples of the various ways in which general capabilities can be put into practice in the classroom, such as the representation of the ICT capability in English, by crafting an understanding of digital texts and creating multimodal texts to answer questions. The second key idea I would like to call attention to is that the literacy and numeracy capabilities encompass much more than just basic reading and maths. Studies have shown that today's society demands that people be more literate than ever. More and more occupations and social settings are requiring a higher level of literacy to function at an acceptable level. It is because of this that the negative effects of being illiterate are more significant than ever, having serious consequences on social, economical, physical, and mental well-being. This is why it becomes imperative to look at the study of literacy as much more than just basic skills, but more as giving people the ability to operate in the modern world. The same can be said for numeracy. With the rapidly evolving world of technology and the constant changes being made to things such as online banking, phones, internet, it is becoming essential that people have a sound and working understanding of numeracy. This capability can not just be written off as a simple addition and subtraction, as the real-world applications are far more important than that. The third and final key idea of this section is that development of foundation skills and graduate attributes help students to become functioning members of 21st century society. Each of the 7 general capabilities lend themselves to the development of a myriad of different skills that are seen as essential and desirable to employers. Things such as the use of technology, proper communication, and positive teamwork are all foundation skills which are refined through the use of general capabilities. The general capabilities also support skills such as research and inquiry. Information literacy and social understanding are all graduate attributes that are promoted through the proper execution of the general capabilities within the curriculum. The first example of general capabilities in my method area of history is that of intercultural understanding. In contemporary society, intercultural understanding is imperative. The globalization and migration trends support many cultures across the world. Understanding enables respect and appreciation of culture and diversity, resulting in social harmony. In specific relation to Australia, it is imperative that we as educators are able to expose our students to the true history of this nation and its first people. By including things like Indigenous methods of land preservation and Dreamtime stories as oral history, the education system is acknowledging the Aboriginal culture, allowing people to develop a deeper understanding of Indigenous experiences. The second example that I would like to discuss is that of critical and creative thinking, being presented in my other method area of English. ACRA states that critical and creative thinking involves students thinking broadly and deeply using skills, behaviours and dispositions such as reason, logic, resourcefulness, imagination and innovation in all learning areas at school and their lives beyond school. By completing tasks such as analysing texts and producing pieces of creative fiction, critical and creative thinking is being constantly employed and tested in the English method area, allowing the students to have a greater understanding of how this capability can be used in real life. The first step in addressing Jennifer's learning deficit in my method area is to actually identify the cause of her being 3 years behind the expected literacy level of Year 9. According to the Victorian Department of Education, there are a number of reasons why a student could be suffering with learning difficulties in regards to literacy. There are student-related factors which includes things like sensory impairments such as hearing difficulties or dyslexia, as well as something like chronic absenteeism, where the student is not at school nearly enough to engage in the classroom. There are also other things such as social and environmental factors, such as a low socioeconomic status and a family history of learning disabilities. If the cause of Jennifer's gap in literacy understanding goes unidentified, it would have severely negative consequences on her education, most probably leading to difficulties that would arise later in life as an adult. It is therefore imperative that I am able to identify and find out the cause of Jennifer's literacy issues and create a supportive environment for her so that she may get the best educational outcomes possible. Thanks to the Disability Standards for Education compiled in 2005, educators have a legal obligation to make necessary adjustments to support any student with learning difficulties so they may have equitable access to a proper education. So, to ultimately answer the question of how the information of Jennifer's literacy troubles will impact her learning in my method area, if left unsupported and no efforts to differentiate her learning are made, then she will suffer negatively. Both her education and other factors such as mental and physical well-being will be damaged, potentially leading to more complications in later life. This is why it is vital that as an educator I employ some teaching strategies that would be suited to supporting Jennifer's learning in my method area. The initial strategy that I will be employing to help support Jennifer's learning is to teach to the point of need. As each student brings their own unique experiences that dictate their ability to learn, it is extremely difficult to expect that one teaching style will cater to all students. It is because of this the Australian Institute for Teaching and School Leadership, otherwise known as AITSL, have included the idea of differentiated learning in their graduate standards for education. Standard 1.5 states that teachers should use differentiated teaching methods in order to support the distinct learning needs of students across the full range of abilities. By establishing the learning needs of the student by performing some form of diagnostic assessment, such as the York assessment of reading for comprehension, as an educator I can then plan how to better support the student's learning needs. In the case of Jennifer, she's having difficulties achieving the expected literacy standard for a Year 9 student. For the purposes of this presentation, I will be supporting Jennifer as if her reason for her literacy deficit was due to her difficulties with oral language comprehension. A very simple but effective way to help Jennifer with this is by exposing her to multiple text forms to better strengthen her understanding of literacy. By allowing her to receive instruction through written format instead of verbal, she will have an easier time understanding the tasks required of her in the classroom. Additional resources that can be provided to help students with similar learning difficulties is a speech-to-text tool integrated into a laptop or mobile device as a form of assistive technology, which has been proven to show great results when dealing with students with oral speech difficulties. This use of multiple exposures as a high-impact teaching strategy can greatly increase the student's level of confidence in the classroom, leading to better educational outcomes. The second strategy that I'll be using to support Jennifer's learning in my method area is the use of explicit teaching. Explicit teaching is a high-impact teaching strategy that employs direct and definitive direction for students, as the teacher is distinct in their explanation of the unit content, actually showing the students what to do and how to do it. By utilising clear instruction and example in the classroom, it promotes a high level of student self-efficacy. This belief that the students have the ability to learn allows for them to push themselves as learners, attempting more challenging tasks than they otherwise normally would. This has been shown to have great effectiveness when dealing with students with learning difficulties, as often when they are placed in a regular classroom setting, they struggle to keep up with instruction and class content, leaving the students feeling inadequate in their education. By boosting their confidence and giving them solid structure through explicit teaching, it encourages the student not to give up and continue to strive for sound educational outcomes. For someone like Jennifer, who is identified to have difficulties with oral language comprehensions, this clear instruction and worked examples from the teacher can only benefit her understanding of the content. By using a resource such as an activity plan at the start of the class, setting out the day's tasks can reduce a lot of the stress that would come with trying to understand everything verbally. To be numerate and literate is essential to all academic endeavours and ultimately a successful life in modern society. In my method area of humanities, both literacy and numeracy are ingrained throughout the content of the unit. It is important that these general capabilities are addressed across multiple method areas, as being literate and numerate allows for students to branch off in other academic ventures, aiding in developing their understanding of the content. This also acts as a way to support real-life applications of literacy and numeracy. A specific example of how literacy is embedded in my method area is through the analysis of secondary sources. In Year 8 History, one of the learning areas that students will undertake is the study of medieval Europe. In their humanities textbook, the students will be given the opportunity to read and discuss a secondary source describing the structure of the judicial system of that time period. While analysing the source, they will be able to start developing their own understanding of important literacy components such as bias. One of the ways in which I embed numeracy in my method area is through looking at the measurement of time throughout history. During medieval times in Europe, there was a large number of wars and skirmishes between various parties, which can be collated into a timeline of events. By supporting the students to craft their own timeline compiled of the various battles that a specific nation was involved in, it allows them to test their numeracy skills and create a resource that they are able to look back on. Relating units of time is an essential skill used in day-to-day life in many aspects such as employment, study, shopping, etc. The way in which I support literacy and numeracy in my teaching is by exposing students to a variety of different examples and mediums in order to aid them in their overall development. This allows students at different stages of the ACRA progressions to help improve their literacy and numeracy skills. Within literacy, I am explicitly presenting an assortment of different textual forms from which the students are able to craft their own understandings of complex literary devices. One example of this that is prevalent in history is the validity of evidence. To have a proper understanding if a source is valid or not, students are prompted to ask questions about the source, analysing it for truth, a literary technique which is critical to the progression of a 21st century society. On the other hand, with the numeracy side of things, it is important that I use the progressions laid out by ACRA to support the development of numeracy in my teaching. By utilising the historical inquiry process, students are constantly being exposed to a vast array of content which will help with the development of their numeracy skills. For example, by analysing a timeline of historical events during the Middle Ages, students are developing 3 of the key numeracy progressions outlined by ACRA. They are measuring time, interpreting and representing data, while also understanding units of measurements. These progressions are helping the students improve their numeracy skills, in turn supporting them to be numerate members of society. One way to support your child's literacy at home is to have discussions about what your child is reading. By discussing some of the texts that the child is studying at school, it allows for them to explain their understanding of the content. This in turn strengthens their own grasp of the meaning of the text. Another very simple way a parent can support their child's literacy is by encouraging their child to read widely and help them by joining in with the reading process of unraveling a new text. By supporting their child, they are exposing them to an array of different texts, each with their own themes, language, techniques, and subtle meanings. It only aids in diversifying their understanding of literacy. A way in which you can support your child's numeracy at home is by introducing them to real-life applications of numeracy. Something very simple just as reading a map. By sitting down with your child and either pulling out a road atlas or jumping on Google Maps and planning the route that your family will take for a short holiday. By taking them through some of the nuances of a map, you are helping the child develop a basic understanding of topography. This simple task supports the child's understanding of many everyday numeracy applications such as space and area, values, and distance. Something that doesn't seem like it matters much is huge. Just a simple planning of a map can be very beneficial to a student's understanding of numeracy, and is a quite simple task that can be done at home with any member of the family.